It's time for Extra Point with your host, Phil Jones.
One.
All right, guys, welcome into another week of talking high school football. It is Extra Point with yours truly, Phil Jones. And, of course, to my right and really directly in front of you is Miss Producer Mazzani Matthews. How's it going?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing well. Hope you guys had a great weekend, and I hope you guys didn't get rained on too much.
Yeah, I think that rain kind of, depending on where you lived, of course. I mean, I think some people got wet, some people didn't. I think it kind of skirted most of us, and really, I think for the most part, I know some games got wet, but I think for the most part, most of the games really weren't that impacted by the wet weather, and that really was a concern. Last Friday and then, of course, 2 weeks ago, and then this past Friday. But at least the games that we were at really did not make any difference, did it, the weather?
Yeah, we stayed dry.
We did stay dry. Big thanks to our friends at Brooks County. It was my first trip to not Equipment, but to Brooks County. First game, the first Brooks County football game I've ever watched in that stadium, if you can believe that. But it was our first live stream from Brooks County Stadium, and we saw a good one. Congratulations to the Fitzgerald Purple Hurricanes. Man, they turned it on after that season-opening loss to rival Irwin County. Fitzgerald has come back with a couple of big victories over Crisp and, of course, now over the much-heralded Brooks County Trojans. What a great win that was for Tucker Pruitt and the Purple Hurricanes. And let me just say this, for those of you that may have missed it, or if you haven't watched Fitzgerald Purple Hurricane football in a while, I love Fitzgerald's approach, okay? Now, if you are all about 5 receiver sets and throwing, 50 passes a game, this isn't for you. Fitzgerald's offense is not for you. It's the bunch formation. I mean, you got everybody. Literally, all 11 men are within 5-6 yards of the football on either side. Nobody in the slot. And I'm not talking about every down, but almost every down. You're talking about nobody in the slot, nobody out wide, everybody. You got a couple of H-backs on the end, a couple of fullbacks. And it's just direct snap, and we're going to run it right up the middle at you and stop us if you can. Everybody knows what's coming, but you know what? Tucker Pruitt and that offense seems to work, and it was really working and clicking on all cylinders the other night, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I mean, all throughout the game, honestly.
So Fitzgerald comes away with the upset victory at Brooks County. Still a lot of football left to be played, and I will say this. Brooks County was able to move the football.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, they moved the football, and I've said it before. We had the luxury of calling Brooks County a couple of weeks ago when they went over to Cook. It was our ITG Next Game of the Week 2 weeks ago, and when they defeated the Hornets. And Junior Burris, what a quarterback that young man is. He has got some kind of arm. And now I was talking about the Fitzgerald offense. If you don't like 3-4 wide receiver sets, empty backfield, okay. If you didn't like that with Fitzgerald, well, that's exactly what you get with Brooks County.
Yeah.
They love to spread it out. I've never seen a team that has an infatuation with throwing the long ball, and I love it. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to work for them this year because they have got some kind of talent. The only problem was Mazzani, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but Friday night, Burris, unfortunately, not his night. He threw 3 interceptions.
Yeah, I was just about to say Fitzgerald, they did a great job on defense and then, picking the ball off. It really surprised me how many times they were able to do that on Brooks.
Yep, 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
And really, if you get down to it, that was kind of the difference in the game.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, because Brooks, and they'll pick it off like on the third down or something like that, And it wasn't like Brooks weren't able to get first downs and keeping the momentum going. But when you throw an interception, you're just giving the ball right back. So I think that was one of their biggest challenges Friday.
Absolutely. Big thanks, by the way, guys, to our friends at Pepsi Cola here in Valdosta, and Dr. Kevin Collins, the Houston Clinic. Big thanks to our sponsors of the show.
Yes. I see a lot of people checking in, Phil. We actually have a comment here from Trip Block. He says, "Hey, Phil, and go Lee."
Absolutely, Trip, and I'm glad this will give me an opportunity to mention our friend Trip.
Yes.
And we have set up a GoFundMe page.
Yes.
For our buddy Trip. We love you, Trip. And we want to help you get better, my friend. And big thanks, of course, goes out to our fearless leader, Mark Dykes. This was his idea, but we all of us here at ITG Next Georgia, we completely endorse this 100%. Again, Trip, we think the world of you, but we want to tell all of you guys, go to the link. We've got the link up, do we not, Mazzani?
Yes, the link is in the description of this live here on Facebook and YouTube.
So if your heart feels compelled to give, to donate, I don't think there's any minimum, and I'm sure Trip would be more than grateful for anything that you could give. So wanted to mention that to you. And again, this is what friends do for friends, and Trip certainly is a great friend of ours. And as I've mentioned, hey, he's Lee County's #1 fan.
Yeah.
So we gotta get a Trip back up to snuff, man, and get him out there to root on his Lee County Trojans. Speaking of which, I bet Trip Block was some kind of happy.
Yes, I would have been. Yes.
Watching his Lee County Trojans get the win in Moultrie, and Trip, if I am not mistaken, wasn't that the first win ever for Lee County in Colquitt County? I think I saw that posted.
Wow.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
It's history.
It is history, absolutely. So, big win for Lee County. It's just one of the many games, though, that we're going to talk about here on the show. But as we customarily do, we're going to take a look at who all is in the house. And I know we got Luke Nelson, big Luke Nelson, big Buford fan. His boy plays for Buford. Luke Nelson says, "Let's go." Big Buford is here. Now, he's not talking about the hamburger.
No.
He's talking about Big Buford.
Yeah.
And for those of you that have eaten from who's got the Big Buford?
That's what I was Checkers.
Checkers. There you
go.
go. Checkers. I like me some Checkers, man. One of the best chili dogs you'll ever eat.
I'm trying to stay away from their fries.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Their
So
fries.
is that not the most incredible thing you've ever eaten?
Seasoned so well. So
They
good.
are. They
Okay.
are. Oh, we got to move on here. Come on, you're killing me. I started though, didn't I?
Yeah. Let's see who else we have out here. We have A.B. Brown. He says, "Phil, how about them Camden County Wildcats?"
Yes,
Yeah.
Camden County. The Camden County Wildcats keep rolling. I tell you, we had a bunch of Wildcats. Valdosta Wildcats.
Yes.
They go up to Metro Atlanta, get a big win over South Gwinnett. And listen, for those of you that gave me a hard time, look, Valdosta is back in my top. They're in my top 10. I told you, after wins over Monday's Meal, I just wouldn't, Tucker wasn't ready to go there. But the wins over Tampa, Jesuit, going down to South Florida, and then going up to North Georgia to South Gwinnett and getting a couple of key wins in those games, that's going to start getting you noticed. Those are good wins. Those are good games for Valdosta to travel and know what that's like, right?
Exactly, Phil. That's what I was just about to say. It's good when you get a win at home, but it's really nice to see how a team does on the road. And,
Correct.
These weren't really like, just a skip and a hop over. They took some time to get there. So it was really nice to see them be able to travel well and handle business on the field.
It really was. And why are we saying that? Because this is what teams are going to have to do come playoff time.
Yeah.
Teams from South Georgia are going to have to travel up to North Georgia and vice versa. So if you're not used to making that trip, if you hadn't made those trips or played those games during the regular season, well, and I think we've seen that probably haunted Valdosta last year when they lost to Carrollton, I believe it was, in the playoffs. Just had not played on the road in that big-time atmosphere. But, hey, Shelton Felton and crew, they've done it this year. They've done it twice now. So, Valdosta, good-looking football team, got some really good athletes. Todd Robinson, the quarterback.
Wow.
I saw him 2 years ago, and I came right back to the office, and I wrote a story about him, and I've told you guys this a lot. So, he is, in my opinion, like any good quarterback is, he's the guy that makes Valdosta go, and I know they've got a lot of great talent, don't get me wrong, but again, like any team, it all starts and stops with your quarterback, and Valdosta's got a good one.
Yes. We have a great one, and crazy thing is, he's got an offer from Georgia, but it's not even for that position. So I think that's amazing how he's, maybe that's not his position that he started off in, but he's still a great quarterback nonetheless.
Yeah, I remember his very first offer came from Troy. I think they're just known as Troy now. I know him as Troy State. But when I did the story, they had just made the offer, Troy State did, to Todd, and it was for defensive back. And that's really what he is being recruited as. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Being recruited as a defensive back. But I tell you, that means you're a great athlete. That's what that means. And a lot of times teams utilize their greatest athlete, at quarterback. And that's kind of the dynamics of high school football. So, and now here's another one that we'll talk about. And to start off with, we're going to keep it in the Valdosta area. Have you guys seen the run from Lowndes part-time quarterback, all-time athlete, Marvis Parrish?
No, I have not.
Have you not seen that?
Where was that at? Wasn't that
Oh,
on,
my goodness. It was during Lowndes' game against, was that Kill that they played Friday night?
Yes.
Wow. How many of you guys have seen the play? Okay, it's making its rounds. It's going viral on social media. I'll describe it for you. I posted it on my Facebook page and said, this is probably one of the greatest single greatest run for a touchdown I've ever witnessed in my life. And I know many of you have responded and liked the comment, and I posted the highlight as well from Lowndes Football's Facebook page. Guys, I've never seen anything like it. How many of you have seen the play? If you haven't, go to the Lowndes Football website or Facebook page, rather, and take a look at the run from Marvis as he gets the football around his own 40-yard line, and he breaks one tackle after another after another. At one point, all of the Kell defense has got their hands on him.
Wow. I got to check it
out.
out.
Oh, it's incredible.
Justin Kyle Haley says it was a good run, but it was illegal about 4 times, LOL. Heath Carver says, heck of a run. Wow.
Yeah, and there is some truth to what Justin Haley is saying, because he did get a lot of assistance. Let me put it that way. So so there's definitely there was a lot of moving parts. Let's put it that way in that particular play. But it was, as everyone will agree, a great individual effort without a doubt. Justin Kyle Haley, by the way, great to see you here on the show, my man. All right, let's see who else we got. Obadiah Farley says, I just watched it. Obadiah, what do you think about it? And then J.C. Parrish. Oh, and J.C. Parrish mentions, check out the interception before that run. Yeah, Marvis, had an interception on defense.
Wow. So I'm assuming he might have been MVP for that game.
I tell you what, he was he made our ITG Next top 10 performers.
Oh, okay.
For the week. And I want to remind everybody, please give me your nominees every week for your top performer, because I like to acknowledge the top 10 performers, and I like to acknowledge the ones who are actually submitted by coaches, fans. Remember, I got to have, you got to have official stats. And so don't call up and say, hey, so-and-so had about, 200 yards rushing. I need to have the touchdowns or whatever it was, and I need to have the number of receptions or rushes and the number of yards. So I just need some accuracy from you guys, but I would love the input from you guys, your coaches, as long, again, as it is somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yes.
So, all right. Who else we got checking out?
We have Andrew Watkins. He says Darty versus Monroe next week. We have Daniel Rowland checking in. He says Burke County checking in. A.B. Brown, he just took the whole team to school.
He really did. Great. Well put. Who said that, A.B.?
Yeah, A.B. Brown. And then we have Cedarian Williams. He says, hey, Mazani, go Cats. Hey, Cedarian. I went to high school with him. Thank you for checking in the show.
Absolutely. Who was that now?
Cedarian Williams.
Okay, very good. What's up, Cedarian?
Let's see here. Oh, he said Justin Kyle Haley says he is one heck of a player. I've seen him since a freshman kid. Kid is going to be good in college. So they've been having their eyes on. You said his name is Marvis.
Marvis Parrish.
Okay, since a freshman.
Yeah, he was a quarterback for Lowndes last year, and this year, Adam Carter told me, look, he's such a good athlete that we're going to put him wherever we have a need.
So,
And that's usually what you do with your like I said earlier. When you have your best athlete, you normally use him at quarterback, but Adam Carter is choosing to use him in other places wherever he's needed. And as you can see, he's coming through with an interception, a big time run, and I think he had a couple of touchdown passes. I may be wrong, but nevertheless, he made our top 10 performers this week.
Every team really needs a player like that, somebody that you can utilize on both sides of the field.
No doubt.
Or both sides of the ball.
Kerry Claiborne, my buddy Kerry, who is the public address announcer for the Buford Wolves. He's a friend of mine. He says, horrible defense on that lounge run. Those defensive players better have been running stairs Saturday morning. Kerry, you killing me, buddy. I love you. All right, let's see who else we got in the house here.
Jose Badillo. He said, hey, Mr. Phil.
Hey, Jose,
how are you?
Yeah, what's going on, Jose? Jose Badilla introduced himself to us not this past week, but the week before after the Thomas County Central Thomasville game.
Yeah.
Love it. By the way, many of the TCC fans introduced themselves to me. Of course, I know Jose. There's a lot of them I didn't know, but we were right there on top of the Thomas County Central fans. Our situation in the press box. Everybody was turning around, waving to us, and at one point, I just went down and kind of acknowledged a lot of the fans that were sitting right there below us. Great fans.
Yes.
Let me tell you, you're going hard pressed to find any better fans than TCC, right?
It's those horns. I think that's what it is.
That was my first look or sound. I should have said I wasn't not my first look, but my first dealings with the horns.
Yes, you hear them before you see them.
Yes, the whole game.
Yeah.
And so that was something else. But hey, you know what? That's all a part of fandom, isn't it? Absolutely.
Exactly. And then, we always have Evan Reese checking in. He says, hello, go Mighty Hornets. Roswell beat Westlake 42-35 last week. He says, we have Seconder this week to start region.
I hear you. So Seconder, I believe I still got them ranked. Yes, I do. Seconder is one of my ranked teams. You guys be sure to check out the ITG Next Top 10. We are now part of the composite poll for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and the Georgia High School Football Daily. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Ain't that a big deal?
That's always something to celebrate.
It really is. So you've got the ITG Next Top 10, along with the AJC, along with Score Atlanta, Max Preps, Georgia Public Broadcasting, 680 The Fan, and Maxwell Ratings. I've already said them. Max Preps. Anyway, that's it. So we are there, and all those agencies, the media outlets that I just mentioned to you, I think there's 6 of us. We all submit our top 10 on Sunday for every classification. And Todd and his crew at the AJC and the Georgia High School Football Daily Newsletter, they kind of put everything together, and that's why they call it a composite poll, because it takes all of our rankings and kind of comes out with an average and that's how the teams are ranked, 1 through, and they'll actually rank every team that is submitted. So sometimes you'll see, like 15 or 16 teams listed, because if any of us, the aforementioned group that I just mentioned, if any of us have a team in our top 10, okay, they're going to get ranked.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of how that works. So speaking of top 10, you've got our top 10 listing that we can talk about today as we go forward. And Carrollton remains our number 1 team in Class 6A, followed by Buford. Don't worry, I won't go through all of these, but just to kind of hit some of the highlights. Carrollton remains our number 1 team, followed by Buford. In Class 5A, Milton, number 1, followed by Coffee. Class 4A. Now, I've got Perry, still my number 1 team. And I know a lot of people are like, I think I may be the only guy in that group, again, that we're doing the composite poll. Everybody loves Marist. I get it. But you know what? I like Coach Smith and Perry, defending state champions. So until I'm proven otherwise, I'm going to hang on to Perry as my number 1 team there in 4A. Do you have the rankings? You want to go through starting on 3A?
Yeah, so for 3A.
Just hitting the top teams.
Okay, so the top teams for Class 3A, we have Sandy Creek sitting at taking the number 1 seat. Number 2 is Monroe area. And for number 3, we have Peach County.
And then go to 2A?
Yeah, so for 2A, we have Pierce County in number 1. Number 2 is Morgan County, and 3 is Sumter County.
Oh, where you at, Vincent Kears? I know you're loving that Sumter County. It's good to see good football back in Americus, Georgia, by the way. I've talked about certain towns where it's important to have winning football. Valdosta, Thomasville, those are just historic football towns. And so throw Americus, Georgia in there. Good to see Sumter County back on top.
Yes. And then you mentioned in Thomasville. So for a Class A Division I, in that top spot, we have Toombs County. But at number 2, we do have Thomasville.
I've had Thomasville in that top spot for most of the season. I think, in fact, I've had them there since the preseason. I still think they're one of the top teams to contend with in Class A Division I. But right now, it's really hard to not acknowledge Toombs County, the Bulldogs, as the top team in Class A Division I. They're just playing really good football. They knocked off Rome a couple of weeks ago. They had the big win this past week. So, yeah, I like Toombs County at number 1, followed by Thomasville. And there's those Dublin Fighting Irish coming in at number 3.
Let's see. For Class A Division II, we have Bowden at the number 1 spot. And then for number 2, we have Irwin County. And number 3, you got to have Clinch County.
Brooks County, again, was my number 1 team. Brooks has fallen to 2-2 now. I believe it's 2-2 on the year as they fall to Fitzgerald this past Friday night. So, look, I still think Brooks County is going to be the team. Them in Bowden, I think it's going to go right down to the wire. Irwin County is really just kind of sneaky, hanging around. Nobody's giving a lot of publicity, but don't be surprised if you see Irwin County at the very end fighting for a state championship. And then we got Class A through 3A. Now, I separate, which we all do, everybody in the composite poll, we separate Class A through 3A, the private schools. Why? Because they're eventually going to be branched off on their own in the playoffs. So instead of trying to, separate them during the regular season, which they still play each other and talking about the public schools and private schools, but for ranking purposes, knowing that they are going to be all playing for a state championship, I think it's 26 private schools.
Wow.
In Class A through 3A. So we go ahead and rank them from the very beginning. And who we got at number 1?
So for number 1, we have Savannah Christian at the top. And then for number 2, we have Prince Avenue Christian. And number 3, it goes to Calvary Day.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about them, Phil.
Well, Prince Avenue Christian, obviously, they have been my number 1 team. Really hard, though, to ignore Savannah Christian and what they're doing. In fact, they had a big matchup with Fellowship Christian, a battle of top 5 teams, 2 of the top private schools in the state. And Savannah Christian flexed their muscle, and they defeated Fellowship Christian by about 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
So they stay at number 1. Prince Avenue Christian, one of the toughest schedules in the state. Look, I've got them at number 2, but flip a coin, okay? In fact, really, when you start talking about Savannah Christian, Prince Avenue Christian, Calvary Day, Hebron Christian, our guy Jonathan Guest, remember he used to be at Eagles Landing Christian Academy. By the way, add Eagles Landing Christian Academy to that list that I had given you and Sly. And our folks out there are probably wondering, what are you talking about? What list? One of the things I wanted to talk about, and Coach Sly, who's going to be joining us about 5:45, he brought this up last week. And in the state of economy in the United States, there's this talk about transfer of wealth.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to apply that to the state of high school football in Georgia. And there is a transfer of talent. And what do I mean by that? All the so-called blue bloods, all of the traditional powerhouses seem to be ceding a little bit of their power to up-and-coming teams. I mentioned Eagles Landing Christian Academy. Now, they had been one of the top private school programs in the state, but they, since the aforementioned Jonathan Guest left, they've struggled a little bit. Okay? And we've had several teams that have done that, and I kind of made a list of several that I want to talk about and see what you guys think about that.
Let's see here. We have a little bit of people commenting about our top teams. Let's see who we have here. Matthew Fielder says Toombs is not beating Milton. Let's see.
No, that of course not. I mean, and listen, let's be realistic here. You know, this is called staying in your own lane. But real quick, so I want to get you. I was just talking about the schools that have kind of ceded a little bit of their power. So Walton, okay, the Walton Raiders, okay, we've seen them kind of taking a back seat. Cedar Grove goes without saying, and they may be the perfect example of the program that has been on top for so long has kind of fallen off. Not kind of, they have. Okay, Cedar Grove, 4 or 5 state championships in the last 7 years. Obviously, John Adams leaves, the head coach. Bo Walker leaves. So you got a major transfer of power there. Okay?
Yeah, so do you think the players start transferring when maybe like the coaches start to move somewhere else, or
100%.
Yeah.
100%, and it has made a tremendous difference. I mean, Cedar Grove is really not even on the football map anymore. And we'll go through these real quick. Parkview, who we're going to be seeing this upcoming Friday night, our game of the week. Parkview that's another program that you could always count on Parkview year after year after year making the playoffs. Now, they may still do it this year. It's going to be a big game with them in North Gwinnett this week. But Parkview, nothing like they used to be right now, but that could change. Calhoun's another one. Woodward Academy, who we saw a couple of weeks ago. Woodward Academy played for a state title last year, and I think they've won like 1 game so far.
It's crazy to see how quickly these programs change in just a year.
It really is. It very much is, Mazzani. That's what I was talking about. You know, look at all these programs. Jefferson, the Jefferson Dragons, the days of Sammy Brown are gone. Jefferson got beat 35-0 this past week. Okay, got beat by North Oconee, who's up and coming team. Norcross, the Blue Devils. Now they're still kind of hanging around. Keith Maloof, the head coach there, but still not like the Norcross Blue Devils that we are used to seeing. Greater Atlanta Christian. Okay, what in the world has happened to Greater Atlanta Christian? Speaking of Norcross, that's where they're located. Rome, again, a little early to be putting them off to the side, but Rome got beat by the aforementioned Toombs County Bulldogs.
Yes.
Last week. So then we got Colquitt, which no surprise. We kind of expected Colquitt to have a little bit of a down year, and it has proven that so far. They've had a couple of tough losses, but still nothing like the Colquitt that we have seen flex their muscle early in the season. And then Brookwood, the Brookwood Broncos, who, again, another program. So if there's one that I'm missing, you guys let me know. But I just think it's kind of interesting that we've got so many of these, as Sly calls them, blue bloods that are kind of taking a backseat.
And I wonder, like, you guys, tell us maybe what your thoughts on, like, or what factors do you think play a part of this transfer of talent?
Yes.
As you would say, you know, whether it's the coaching, like me and Phil just said, the coaches leaving to a different program and then the players just following sometimes, or just dropping off and transferring somewhere else. What do you guys think it may be?
Yeah, and I do think, and I'll say this and we'll move on. I think it is part of it has got to do with players leaving, but I think that's a very unique situation in Cedar Grove. There's no question that, again, when Coach Adams left, the players definitely left and I don't want to say revolted, but that's what they did.
Yeah.
They left and went to other programs. Okay. So there's no question, what's happened there.
Gerald Gibbons says it's recruiting.
Yes. That's another. I think there's several different answers.
Yeah.
For overall.
And one way that I was thinking about, because I was just over the weekend listening to, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Dog Nation Daily on YouTube.
Sure.
And they were just talking about, how, obviously college offers, but people are getting recruiting, and how Georgia has like, you have your first string, second string, third string, or whatever. But how do you get people to stay at Georgia? Even though they may come in, they know they might not be playing for the first year or first season or something like that. But how do you get players to stay with a program like that, even though they know they may not get playing time right off the bat, instead of a player thinking, oh, I could just go here to this school and I'll get playing time sooner?
That's a good question.
So I'm like, is that kind of what's happening in high school, especially now, since I feel like it's a little easier to transfer now in high school?
Yeah, who's the quarterback for Georgia? I don't know why I can't remember his name. That's who.
I
don't know why
see his
can't-
face in my.
Well, I watched the game Saturday night. I don't
Yes.
know why I can't remember his
Actually,
name.
Somebody mentioned the game Georgia versus Kentucky.
Yep.
But the name would come to me. Somebody said in the
Somebody
comments,
else sent it to
I
us.
see his face in my head right now. I know what he looks like. But Stetson Bennett pops up, but I know that's not
No,
him.
not Stetson Bennett. But anyway, so now this is not exactly the type of player you're talking about.
Carson Beck.
There
Thank
we go,
you.
Carson Beck.
Thank
I
you,
knew somebody would get it. So Carson Beck was thinking about leaving to go to the NFL. And again, I know it's not exactly the example you're looking for because you're talking about players who may or may not see playing time and how they get them to stay. But Carson Beck was thinking about leaving to go to the NFL draft. And Kirby Smart says, hey, he went to his assistant and said, hey, we got to do whatever it takes. Do you know where I'm going with this?
No.
Do
but
you know? You got to know. You guys. He went to his assistant and said, "We got to do whatever it takes to keep that man here.
Yeah.
He's our best chance at a national championship." So they went and bought him a Bentley.
Oh, wow.
Now, can't do that with guys that you don't know if they're going to see the playing field or not.
No, you
But-
cannot.
Coach Kirby Smart answered that. He said, "Look, and maybe you can take this and apply it to your the answer you're looking for." Kirby Smart said a lot of the kids, and I call them kids. I think I know they're young men, but said that their approach to people that you're talking about, young men that are thinking about leaving, who may be number 2 or 3 on the depth chart, where they can go elsewhere and play right away.
Yeah.
Kirby says to those guys, look, even though you may not be a starter for us, the NFL loves the University of Georgia's coaches and their approach. And the point here is that if you think that you can have a chance at the NFL, and listen, you got a Georgia Tech running back that's running wild in the NFL right now. His name escapes me, but he went undrafted. Okay? So just because you are not a number 1 starter, just because you're not number 1 on the depth chart, doesn't mean that you don't have a chance to go to the NFL. And the University of Georgia is preaching to these kids, hey, look, you stay with us. We will condition you. We will create an NFL caliber player out of you, even if you don't see the field on every down.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that.
I imagine it's hard for other schools to have that type of leverage if you're not Georgia.
No question.
You know.
And listen, that comes from the NFL scouts. And it ain't like Kirby's making stuff up. That's bona fide.
Yeah.
So anyway, just want to talk about that real quick. All right, so let's go back to see who all we got in the house today. I always want to acknowledge our great viewers. Let's see here. Lakeisha Esther is checking out the show. What does Lakeisha say?
She made a great comment. She said sometimes the program changes and sometimes coaches or players don't get the same support changes at the board and of the principal. And she said basically all those things tie in together.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I didn't even think about possibly, the board and the principal and all of that. I didn't go that route with my thinking.
Steve Reynolds Boulevard is watching the show. And for those of you that get it, you get it. Jeremy Williams. Jeremy, I got your text earlier, brother. Just hadn't had a chance to return your text. Jeremy Williams says Cedar Grove is still the team to beat in 3A. Okay, wait a minute. I will take issue with that. Okay. They are not right now. Okay. They are. There's no semblance to the team that was Cedar Grove. Okay. That's just the way it is. Michael Baxter is checking out the show and says hello to Alicia James Silvestri. That is, by the way, for those of you who don't know, that's Mrs. Sly.
Oh, nice.
Yep. She is the director of football operations for Milton. And she says, hi, Michael. Now, I don't know if that's actually her or if that's Sly in disguise. Okay, so not sure there. Could be.
Could be Sly.
Matthew Fielder, Lakeisha, are y'all taking care of our former coach from Jones County? So, okay, so that must have been the question that she was responding to there. Ray Yawn says Dodge County Indians are in the house. What's up, Ray? We got your Dodge County Indians are ranked. And where do I have them at? Oh, got them at number 4 in Class A Division 1. So you guys be sure to check out our composite poll, which we are a part of, again, on the GHSF Football Daily and the AJC. So be sure to check that out.
We have Michael Wayne Dalton checking in. He says, go Fitzgerald Purple Hurricanes.
Absolutely.
Were you at the game this past Friday, Michael?
We were, absolutely. So a big game this past week. We were there. Thanks so much for everybody that checked out the game. Let's talk about some of the other big games that from this past weekend. Carrollton Boy, did they not flex their muscle against a very good Gainesville team.
They did.
Oh, my goodness. This might be the year for Juju Lewis, his final season at Carrollton. Everybody's been kind of wondering if he was going to, he's a good player, number 1 rated quarterback in the country. How about the state of Georgia? For the last 2 years, have had the number 1 rated quarterback in the United States.
That's amazing.
It
I
is.
got a chance to see him play, and it was really nice. I think it was like 2 seasons ago I got to see him play.
Yep, same here. We did the Carrollton East Coweta game, and he was spot on. let me
Yeah, and
tell
I'm like,
you.
he was even poised then at that young age.
Oh, yeah.
So I know it's only gotten better.
No doubt, 100%. So Buford gets the big win. Listen, for those of you who have doubted Buford, okay, to quote the famous late author, I think it was Mark Twain, who said, the rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated. Was that Mark Twain that said that? You guys help me out. Anyway, somebody like that. But Buford, after they lose to Milton to start the season, everybody's like, well, there goes Buford. Then they fell behind to Benedictine, game 2. They had to fight, scratch, claw, trick play their way back into the win. But they won. And let me tell you,
They
when
did.
you win games like that, just like Georgia, my son was having a fit Saturday night.
My mom, too.
And I told Ross, my son, I said, listen, when you're a good football team, and I'm talking about a championship caliber team, you're going to find a way to get it done.
Were you calm the whole entire time?
100%, I really was.
You were confident.
I was 100% confident.
Wow.
And again, I told my son, I said, I've seen this before. Teams fall behind. Georgia fell behind. Georgia couldn't get anything going. But championship caliber teams find a way to win. That's just how the sports world turns. And it turned in favor of Georgia, and it's turned in favor of Buford. Okay? And I told Kerry Claiborne, Kerry, if you're watching, I told you. Kerry was worried going back to the who did they have before Douglas County? I don't know. Anyway, he was worried then. I said, don't worry. Buford's got this. That was the Roswell game where they destroyed Roswell.
Yeah.
And then this past week, I don't know, Phil, I think I was only we got it. I said, listen, Buford has turned the corner. And indeed they have. They have beaten 2 really good football teams the last couple of weeks.
For sure.
And they've now they're going to relax a little bit playing Discovery.
Yes, they do. They play Discovery this Friday.
Yep. Camden County, guys, don't look now, but here comes region play, Mazzani.
I know, I'm excited. I'm excited for region play. This is what I've been waiting for. These 5 games flew by.
Didn't they, though?
I'm like, wow, we're here already.
Halfway point already. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
So region plays right around the corner, okay? We talked about Valdosta. They get the big win. Now Camden County and Valdosta. Cats against cats.
Who
you
are the
kidding
real
me?
Wildcats?
Well, the real Wildcats. Please stand up.
Yeah, we know.
Now you're about to separate. Okay, this is where we're going to, what do they call, cull the herd or whatever it's called, where you're going to start to kind of separate the prime beef from the regular teams. Okay, this is where it's going to happen. Forget about what's happened to this point. You've got all these non-region games. What's about to matter is coming up. Region games.
Yeah. And so just for, playoff purposes, I guess we use Valdosta versus Camden. How many do each of these teams have to at least win 2 games to at least make it to the playoffs? Or how?
Top 4 teams.
Okay, yeah.
Top 4 teams. Now, as a rule, and it really depends on how your region goes, but like in Region 1-6A, you could win a game
Yeah.
and get in the playoffs. But if you win 2 games, that really increases your odds.
Yeah.
Okay. Lowndes is playing better, Region 1-6A. Okay. Valdosta's obviously playing well. You've got, Lowndes, Valdosta, Camden,
Yep.
of course. Who else we got? Who else am I missing, guys? Anyway, you guys help me out 1-6A. Who else we got? Richmond Hill is playing very well. Tift County is playing very well. And a lot of people say, well, you think Tift County's probably going to be on the outside looking in, okay? It's a rebuilding year. Jeff Littleton's doing a great job. But who's going to be the other man out, odd man out? Inquiry minds want to know. Okay?
Let's see what they're saying. Oh, thank you. Call quick. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Yes, Greg Tanner. Greg Tanner, big Richmond Hill man. What's up, Greg? Thanks so much for checking out the show. Greg, I like your Richmond Hill Wildcats. I've loved them all season. I loved them before the season. And I told everybody, this could be the year. And they are really looking good. Brought almost everybody back. So just look out for Richmond Hill. I know it's easy to – and listen, let me say this. Lowndes is off to a good start. Do not rule Colquitt County out. I'm just telling you now.
No, you can't.
Look, they've lost some tough games. They're non-region games. But so for those of you that are already kicking Colquitt to the curb, that was a lot of if you're already kicking Colquitt to the curb, just be careful. Be careful. A lot of football left to be played. That's all I'm saying.
Let's see here. Jeremy Williams says Tift County could very well win the state championship.
What?
That's what Jeremy Williams said.
Jeremy, Brady, what are you talking about basketball? The world? Eric Bryant, hey, Phil and Miss Producer, we got you on the big screen here in the sheriff's office again today. Oh man, thanks so much. I swear I didn't do it. Eric, where y'all at again? I know he told us last week. Is that up in Virginia? How about that? We're on the big screen. What's up, guys? Thank y'all so much for your service, man. We appreciate y'all. We really do. And thank y'all so much for checking out the show. It means a lot. I'm honored. 100%.
Let's see. We have Sedarian. He says Camden versus Valdosta. I got Valdosta by 7.
Hey, I see a big.
Agree.
You like that, don't you?
Yeah, I do like it.
We got a big Richmond Hill fan, and she's also the director of sports information. I think I got that right, Kennedy. Our old friend Kennedy Thomas Hill. She married. Not Winston Hill. You got to help me out. The guy with 2 first names. I love him. Oh, gosh. I know. I don't hate that. Kennedy used to sit in and host the show with me.
Yes. I remember you telling me about her.
And she and, come on. Help me out. Her and her husband, he's going to hate me for that. He is going to hate me for that. Anyway, Kennedy, thanks so much for checking out the show. Kennedy is the sports information director over at Richmond Hill. What'd she say?
No, Obadiah, he made a funny comment. He says, I'm going to have to screen record Phil's reaction to Jeremy's comment.
I was like, what? I don't know. Some people just throw stuff out there to get that reaction. He got it. He certainly got it from me. Hill Thomas. I'm so embarrassed. Sorry, Kennedy. Yes, Hill Thomas, the guy with 2 first names. Hill is a great man. He's part of the coaching staff over there at Richmond Hill. Great school, great people over there. And Kennedy, thanks so much for checking out the show. We appreciate all you did for us, and thanks so much for rolling out the red carpet for us. We're going to be coming over to Richmond Hill in a couple of weeks for the Richmond Hill Tift County game. It's going to be our ITGNS game of the week.
Yes, let's see. Yes, Kennedy was like, yes, he has 2 first names.
I've always kidded him about that. You'd think that'd help me remember him. Man, listen, I know him well. Just the old memory is gone. Stephen Glover, Tifton won't make the playoffs. Packers will be in the hunt. Has our buddy Sly called in yet?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So let's, without further ado, let's welcome in Sly. I didn't realize you were on the line, brother. Let's welcome in former athletic director for the Milton Eagles, also known as the Empire. It's Coach Sly checking in with us. What's up, brother?
Hey, you guys having fun out there. I love it. It's good stuff.
Oh, absolutely, man. Having a blast. I look forward to – first of all, I've always looked forward to Mondays.
Yeah.
I'm a Mondays kind of guy.
Well, I'm not a Mondays type of gal, but I enjoy this part of my Monday.
There you go. Well, it kind of gives you something to look forward to the end of Monday, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, there you go. So, Sly, what's happening in your world, man?
Just trying to get another one next week, one at a time. It's been a good run so far, just working hard. Hopefully the weather now dries out a little bit and get back to some, football.
I hear you. So you guys had a big game this past Friday night. Talk a little bit about the game against Blessed Trinity.
Yeah, they're a tough ball club. They're ranked. They play well. They're well coached. They play hard. Number 15, I think the last name is Jacobs, maybe. I'm not sure for sure, but number 15, DN linebacker. For sure, he played a great game. Phil, it's interesting. Look at the score, 28-14, right? People say, "Oh, it's a close game." We look at the stat line. We had 390 in offense. They had 70 in offense. So 390 to 70 is a heck of a stat line.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a few other adversities we had to work through on the field. I'll leave it at that. You can use your imagination with that stat line. But at the end of the day, the kids worked hard, and we grew, and we played a very good team. They'll be making a push this year. Plus, they're trying to make a big push this year for sure in their level.
Did you guys go on the road for that one?
Yes.
And that was at Roswell, right?
Yes, at Blessed Trinity in Roswell. Yes.
Yeah. So Mazzani and I were talking earlier, Sly. Let's talk about, as we bring you in here, we were talking about, just to use Valdosta, for example. So Valdosta has kind of been plagued, I'll say, for lack of a better word, Mazzani, and you can jump in here and talk a little bit about this, being that you're a Valdosta fan and you've done work with Valdosta, you've taught at Valdosta. So I know when Valdosta went to Carrollton and lost the playoff game last year, there were people saying, well, we're just not used to going on the road and playing big teams like that and big games like that. Whether it's true or not, that was the perception. And you know what they say about perception? Perception is reality. So I think that may have been part of what Coach Felton wanted to do with taking Valdosta to Tampa. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, you don't get farther than that, and bigger games than what they had with Tampa Jesuit. And then, you go up to North Georgia this past weekend. You take on South Gwinnett, who was undefeated. That's another big win. So talk about what it means to schedule games like that, to go on the road, big-time atmosphere, taking a long road trip, because that's what you're going to have to do if you make the playoffs and you plan on going through and playing deep into the playoffs, guys.
I think they've definitely grown in that area over the seasons of being able to travel on the road and still have a great, result from the game, great turnout, and be able to win. So I think it just takes a little bit of time for teams to get used to that sometimes.
Sly?
Yeah, road trips are interesting because sometimes people say, well, they're not real far or they're far distance-wise. When you're going to play a team at their place, no matter if it's down the street or next state over, when you have high school kids, it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge focused. It's a challenge that you may have that visiting crowd, and your crowd's in travel as well because it may be a TV game or a rough night weather, they'll stay home. There's all kinds of factors involved. And then let's face it, I'm not going to harp on officials. They do a great job, officials, but, man, sometimes you just get hit hard. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at the stat line, once again, 390 to 70, something happened in that game differently. We messed up a few plays too. Don't get me wrong. We got to get better. But I think, when you have 3 or 4 personal fouls or penalties on one drive and aids a drive, you got to fight through that. My whole point is this: that happens anywhere. They look in Florida with the ban and the knee pad ruling. It's different. You got to get that under your belt, like Valdosta is trying to do this year. So when you get to the playoffs, like we had to go to Grayson last year, even though it wasn't a long road trip, it was a hostile environment, and go play ball and win it to go to state championship. It's important. So to your point, Phil, it's very important. But you're dealing with high school kids, right? And all it takes is a little adversity, and to get this group of seniors ready and battle tested, you need that adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I agree with I agree with that all the way.
Absolutely. So Lakeisha Esther says they are well disciplined. Remind me of the old Benedictine team, and I'm assuming that she's talking about Milton.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people are talking about Milton here. Mm-hmm. Danny Jones, he says same thing. They're a great discipline on all sides of the football, and that they'll be a hard team to beat this season.
How about Danny Jones also saying Milton is really great at controlling the clock and scoring while doing it. Mm-hmm. So, Sly, let me mention to you the game that Mazzani and I had this past Friday night. It was Fitzgerald and Brooks County, two big-time southern South Georgia teams, a lot of tradition, and it was really a study in two completely different offenses. Okay, and I kind of want to get your take on it. You know, Fitzgerald obviously and William Brooks County are both smaller schools. They're both Class A schools. Okay, one in Division I, one in Division II. But to me, you saw two completely different approaches. What Fitzgerald does, and Sly, I know you're not really familiar a lot with the deep South Georgia teams and kind of what they do. Fitzgerald, and I like what Tucker Pruitt does here. He got hit with heavy graduation losses.
Yeah.
Okay, but did not change the approach, which is put everybody, and I'm talking about offense, not defense, put everybody in the box. Everybody in tight, and maybe a little misdirection here and there, but pretty much I'd say at least 50% of the offense is direct snap out of the Wildcat and just going to run straight ahead. That no frills. Stop me if you can, and teams can't.
Yeah.
And I just love that style of offense because, again, it's not complicated. And I think that there's a method to his madness, so to speak.
Yeah, and he even has faith in the young players. Like you said, he lost a lot of seniors, but you still have to have, faith, and that the hard work that you guys put in is going to show up on the field with the young players, like the sophomores and the juniors, that they can still keep it going.
Right, that's exactly true. And I think, though, what you can do is make it easier for them. And I think that's kind of where we're going with this. Is that look, despite heavy graduation losses, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify things, okay? Not going to reinvent the wheel. So these young guys that are coming in and coming up, there was a number of freshmen, if you'll remember, that toted the football.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's not very complicated. Just going to use your raw talent. And I want to get Sly's take on that and see what you think about that style, that approach.
Well, I think if you simplify things, they play faster, right? They play faster, they play confident. So I think that's a great approach by coach down there to do that. And then look at the end of the day, when you add people into the box, you're adding gaps. Now, they can load the box up on defense. Also, you're adding gaps. Even though it's tight, it's still adding a gap on the line, what helps you in the gap game and the gap run scheme they're going to probably run and stuff of that nature, what he's probably running there. So I think that's a great call by him. I do think at the end of the day, whether you speed things up or slow things down, you have to have an identity in offense. Our coach, Coach Jackson did a great job. North Gwinnett, he won a ring there. He's with us now here at Milton. He won ring with us last year, so he's got a couple rings as an OC in different schools. And his approach is whatever personnel we have that year, the offense will be modified towards that team, right? Whether it be upperclassmen, underclassmen, more receivers, maybe more running game. And we have 3 SEC tight ends on our team. So obviously we're going to utilize those cats the best we can, right? We also have a couple P5 receivers out there as well, and a D1 running back. So you're going to try to utilize it to your advantage. I think that's the best OCs do that. And obviously Coach Dennis Fitzgerald does a good job with that.
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Coach Sly, you were talking about a team's, offensive identity. So do those identities for offense change like each season based on the type of player that you have, or is it maybe like the coach likes running it this way, so we're going to stick with this no matter what kind of talent we have on the field?
Very good question.
That's a great question, and those coaches don't do well usually, right? Because you put a square peg in a round hole. I think you have to go ahead and have that identity fluctuate some year to year. Yeah,
yes.
You may want to be a running team and a good running team. You may have that, right? But today, if your offensive line is maybe a little smaller or younger this year, or maybe the back you had last year, or maybe you have cats outside the numbers different than you had last year, you have to modify that a little bit. I think Coach Jackson does a great job with that, and a lot of OCs and coaches in the state of Georgia does a great job with that. Where Georgia has some really good balanced football. Nobody always put a square peg in a round hole here. They're utilizing their talent the best they can. But that's a great question. Now, some guys do. Look at, and if you want to die on that hill, go right ahead. But if we have, like I said, D1 receivers and tight ends, we're not throwing the ball. There's something wrong. We have a quarterback that really should be Mr. Georgia. He could be. We're not going to throw the ball. We have a problem. But also, we have a heck of a running back, heck of a running game. Actually, a couple good running backs. So our line does extremely well. So it's about balance. I think balance is the key if you can do it. I think we're blessed to have some balance. So that's a great question. So, Basani, what's your thought about that? If you're coaching a team right now, Would you want to go ahead and have hey, we do it this way because that's all I know, or I'm going to be flexible?
I would say the flexible approach, and I think the flexible approach is great, especially if you have like you're not just the only coach. You have especially if you have a great OC. They can really take their methods too, and make it a great. Your team can be able to run and throw the ball pretty efficiently. So if I'm the head coach, I'm not just sticking to my opinion only.
Yeah, let me chime in here. So a couple of examples of what we're talking about, okay? And for those of you that are, and we got some Lowndes fans checking in here, Luke Bush, for one. Luke, how you doing?
Yeah.
Live from Lowndes High School, home of the Vikings. We're excited to start region play, and we'll be talking about region play all across the state kicking up here this week and next week. But real quick, I want to use Lowndes as an example of what we're talking about, this particular topic. So many of you have heard and know Randy McPherson. He was the long-time head coach of the Lowndes High Vikings. Led them to, and Luke Bush, I want you to help me out here, and any other Lowndes fans. Randy McPherson led Lowndes to at least 2 state championships, many region championships, and other state championship game appearances where they didn't win. Still, my point being that he was very successful. And for years, Randy McPherson was known as a run first coach. Okay, I can remember his Lowndes teams would just run that wing tee, the option, and it was very simple. Just very simple, just almost like the Fitzgerald description that I had. You knew what was coming. Stop me if you can. Well, there was a time, where Coach McPherson realized, though, he had more athletic players coming in, faster, and I'll never forget, just when you thought an old school, and I'm putting that in air quotes, you had an old school type coach in Randy McPherson who was smart enough to realize, look, I've got some top flight athletes, and this is kind of what Coach Sly was talking about. Look, I've got some really high caliber athletes. I need to get the best use of them. And it's not lining them up and, never throwing the ball to them. So Randy McPherson was able to change on the fly, and, from year to year, while it wasn't this big, massive transformation, it was enough change from year to year to adapt to his personnel. And that was what you were asking about.
Yeah, and when you were saying that, I thought of something, and I don't want to take it too far away from the players, but I was like, do they even change the personnel as far as, like, your coaching staff to match the talent that's on the field,
You mean like hiring new coaches?
Yeah.
Well, I think to maybe answer that, and I'll let Sly chime in here, I know that some coaches will take and maybe change coaches around. Let them go from coaching linebackers to, I don't know, and I'm just using examples. It's hypothetical. Coaches just coach linebackers, but you know what? I think he's got a good enough eye where he can help us with the defensive backs. Something like that.
Yeah.
I think it would be radical if you've had like a down season and you need some wholesale changes, like you need to change coordinators.
Yeah.
I think that would maybe satisfy the other part of your question. But that's pretty radical. Sly, you want to chime in here on that?
I think you said it well. I think it's a good question for sure, and a good point from Mazzani. But you said it well, Phil. I think, it'd be radical to go ahead and really make some wholesale changes, because culture is everything, and continuity is everything.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for. And I always say this: it's not always the X's and O's, it's the Johnnies and Joes. Sometimes you don't have them. Sometimes you just don't have Johnnies and Joes, and you got to figure it out. Whatever you can do to modify it to the personnel you have, right? Because you can't go out and recruit kids. People think everybody does. You don't. You can't. It's illegal. So you got to do what you got to do with the kids you have. That's why feeder programs are so important. And you see feeder programs getting more and more spotlight on social media now, because it's showing how programs are really building it from the ground floor up through 6th, 7th, 8th grade as well.
Yeah, and we talk about feeder programs, like every week at this point.
Yeah.
We know how important it is. But I see here in the comments by Obadiah Farley, we did have a question for you, Coach Sly. His question was, what is one thing that you think, your team needs to improve on?
Well, that's a great question. By the way, I love that name. I keep on saying that.
Obadiah.
Yeah, what a great listener too. Great question. There's more than one thing we can improve on, and I'm not going to share with all of them because we identify them. But I can say
Your opponent's going to start tuning in, paying attention, right?
right. He'll start selling it on me.
Never, brother, never.
But I can say, Obadiah, great question. I would say this: we need to keep the main thing to focus on it, right? Every week, no matter what the opponent is, who the opponent is, we can't get distracted. If you want to make a run for the 15-game run and go for a championship again and try to go back to back and all that conversation and talk, it's out there. You can't hide from it. Then you have to really keep focused, and you have to play every play like you are a top-ranked team, every practice like you're a top-ranked team, every rep like you're a top-ranked team. And I think we're getting better at that and mature at that little by little. So I think that's important. You can't have any off days, off weeks, off practices, because if that happens, you're going to drop a game, and you don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Especially now, since we're in region.
Yeah. Luke Bush kind of answered my question. And, again, Luke is a great person to answer the question. He has followed the Lowndes High Vikings forever. He works with feeding the team. I mean, he is just truly a top Lowndes High fan and always has been. He's a great guy. Luke Bush says talking about Randy McPherson, by the way, he coached the Michael Barrett team and set offensive scoring, total yards, etc., with the RPO, that run pass option, along with tough defenses. So there you go. So there's a guy who didn't really sell his soul, who kept to his gun, so to speak. Maybe a bad example, but you guys don't understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Coach McPherson decided to stick with what got him there, so to speak. And that was, again, the run-pass option and utilizing, and we all know Michael Barrett. By the way, if you guys haven't seen the new Netflix special about the Michigan coach who apparently was stealing the signals.
Yes, University of Michigan,
That's
yes.
great.
Yeah, have y'all seen that?
No.
That's great. I did.
Michael Barrett is featured heavily to get his team. Of course, Michael Barrett went from Lowndes and played at Michigan.
Yeah, I've got to see it now that you mentioned that, because Michigan, that whole ordeal is just so fascinating to me.
Oh, yeah.
And how they were still able to continue with their season. So, yeah, I got to check that out.
Gotcha. So that was pretty interesting. But anyway, that kind of goes to what we're talking about as far as, being able to change with the times, I guess is what we're saying here. So, all right, so let's talk about some other big games, again, from this past week. Sly, how about Buford? I think they found their mojo, brother.
Yeah, we saw them game one. I told you guys.
Yep.
I told people this all the time. They're better than what you think they are. Everybody thinks if Milton beat you, you're probably down that year. And they all do. Because how can Milton beat a team like that? Well, we're pretty good, but they're pretty dang good too. And we caught them on a night when we had the better game that night. But we knew once that offense got rolling and once Raiola got a little, he gets his sea legs and they get some identity. They have some really good players and talented athletes, and now they're on a roll. And not surprising whatsoever.
And don't look now, but here comes Dean Fabrizio's Lee County Trojans, undefeated. They go into Moultrie, into MacTharp Stadium, also known as the Hog Pen. And, Sly, y'all don't have any hog pens up there, do you, in Milton, brother? I hear you. Hey, but listen, Lee County goes into Colquitt, one of the toughest places in the state to play. Jeff Herron, who is a legend of a coach. Jeff Herron, of course, we know what he does. He's done at Camden County. Jeff Herron told me, we did the coaches show with Coach Herron the last couple of years, the Camden County Coaches Show. Jeff Herron told me of all the places that was the hardest to take a team into was Colquitt County's MacTharp Stadium. And you know what? They use it to their advantage. The sidelines are real tight, meaning there's no room between the wall, for the stands and the sidelines. Okay, so you're packed in there tight. You've got that. You've got, of course, they've done all the modern, innovations to the stadium with the light, the LED lights. And Coach Herron says they got probably the loudest, speaker system. They use all that to their advantage, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And so they maximize what everybody talks about, home field advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a tough place to play. But anyway, Lee County goes in there. And granted, Colquitt is down a little bit this year. They pick up a huge road win at Colquitt. And, of course, the reason I mentioned that, Coach Sly, is because Lee County and you guys 1 and 2 in a lot of polls. I've got Coffee right behind you guys in my particular poll, but Lee County's still right up there. Have you looked at the brackets? And I know you don't want to get too far ahead, but have you guys looked at the brackets to see where you guys could wind up?
I think, and by the way, it's a pretty talented region. Just saying.
Yep.
I believe we're in the 4th round crossover. Could be the 3rd, but I think we're the 4th round crossover with those guys. I can double check it real quick, but I'm pretty sure that's where we're at. Either way, it's going to be probably the state championship game before the state championship game, right? I mean,
listen.
You know.
Go ahead.
I've seen a lot of. I saw somebody say in the comments like the first region matchups are going to be like playoff games, really already. Somebody was saying because there's just such great matchups that we're already in the playoffs, basically.
And that's a good point. And Sly, I'll get you to chime in on this. And I've been talking about it. I think everybody, that follows high school football in Georgia has been talking about it. Guys, this Class 5A, there's just not enough room for everybody. Okay, I mean, there's just not enough room for everybody. You've got Milton, Lee County, Thomas County Central, Coffee, Hughes, Gainesville, Roswell, Houston County. I mean, just not enough room for everybody, you know?
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
To use a word, and I hate to really say this, but they're going to kind of cannibalize each other. That's what they're going to do. These teams, good team is going to face good team, like you just mentioned. First round of the playoffs, you're going to have two. Unfortunately, you're going to have some teams that get eliminated early, and it's going to be a shame. But that's just the way it is. Sly, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, look, we always say this: when the region games start, it's a playoff game. It's game 6, it's a playoff game. Every game you win in a region gets you a better seeding in the playoffs, gets you home field advantage at least 1 week. If you win the region, you get 2 games home field advantage. Then the coin toss kicks in. So this week for most teams in the state, next week for sure, everybody in the state will be playing region games. They're playoff games from the get-go. You can't drop one. You got to go in there with the mentality. I don't care. We're playing Chattahoochee. I think they're 4-0. I don't care who they think they are. It's a playoff game, round 1. We got to go. And that's how we keep it in our heads. I think most teams that are successful have that mentality.
Yeah, Stephen Tate says there will be 2 state championships games before the real state championship game.
Absolutely, and boy, he's right, and that's that's what I'm saying. I mean, look at that top 10 that I just mentioned. Milton, Coffee, so here's the ITG next top 10, Class 5A. Milton, Coffee, Thomas County Central, Lee County, Houston County, Gainesville, and Gainesville drops to number 6 in my poll just by virtue of their loss to Carrollton.
Oh yeah.
But then you got Langston Hughes, Roswell. Now I do reward Seconder. Okay. Rome has dropped out of my top 10. Of course, they could easily be back in there. And then the Brunswick Pirates. But listen, really and truly, those top 8 schools, and not to take anything away from the bottom 2, but you're talking about any of those top 8 schools could literally have a chance to win a state title. Sly?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, every year you think you're going to go ahead and this may be a little bit easier, a little bit, no. It's anybody in that top 10, 8 to 10 can win a state championship legitimately, just like in 6A is. And you got to be ready to go. And to your, as we're talking, look real quick, trying to look on the computer, I think we cross over in the semis with that region. So, I mean, that's going to be the battle before the battle, right? And I think that's how it's going to shake out. But, man, let me tell you what. You said the best way you can say it. It's not the most appropriate, maybe politically correct word in America, but cannibalize. The regions are going to cannibalize each other. They have to a certain extent. But here's the thing. If you're a 3rd or 4th seed and you come out of that region, look out who you're playing against. They're going to get, you may be playing a 1 seed and maybe knock down the first round because you're that good, right? I think people don't realize that. You should see a few 1 seeds, like we always do, Phil and Mazzani, knock out early because of those tough regions where those 4 seed teams are loaded.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Matani.
I was about to say, I see an interesting comment here by Everett Pearson. He says, Camden at Valdosta next week is going to be a game not to be missed, and that is so true. But he also said, winner will be region champs. So,
Yeah, which
yeah.
game is he talking about?
The one, Camden versus Valdosta.
Okay, could be. Could very well be. And again, I'm sure Greg Tanner will agree with me. Richmond Hill. Guys, I'm telling you, I'm just going to say don't make the assumption that you're going to have this thing figured out right away. I think let's let it play out. You could be right. It could be for the region championship, but it remains to be seen. I tell you what, it's a great thing that those two teams are playing to start off region play.
No, right? I'm so excited for it. The time of the year has finally come, Phil. It's finally here, and I know some people have a week off, and some people probably need that week off right now.
Yep, absolutely.
Before they hop into region matchups.
Absolutely. All right, talking about some other big teams. How about Warner Robins? Now we remember Warner Robins under Marquise Westbrook won I don't know how many state championships, 2 or 3 state championships, but went to I think 5 or 6 consecutive state championship games. They didn't make it last year, but Shane Sams has got Warner Robins playing really well. 3-1. They'll be off they were off last week. They'll take on Veterans this week. And again, Veterans, the toughest schedule in the state, because I anointed them. So the Warhawks, unfortunately, the road's not going to get any easier for them, as Warner Robins probably going to get the win there over the Warhawks. Another Houston County area team there. So
we have some people giving out their predictions. I see Roster Sutherland here. He says, well, this is a great comment by him. He said Region 5, 6A could be decided this week. Walton and North Cobb play this week. He says we also have Marietta and Wheeler and Cherokee and North Paulding. How do you feel about those games, Phil and Coach Sly?
I think Marietta wins. I think Cherokee, North Paulding, I really don't know. We're going to have to defer to Coach Sly and his North Georgia prowess on this one.
Cherokee, North Paulding. Cherokee, I'll tell you what, that quarterback is slinging the ball all over the place, put a ton of yards up. He's really, really good. If their defense can hold up, they got a real good shot of winning that ball game. They're playing some really good football, but defensive side of the ball will be I think the question mark. Offensively, they've been scoring points and they've been slinging the ball around the yard, all day long.
How about Jefferson getting beat 35-0? Boy, I tell you, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, that's crazy to nothing.
I mean, the Jefferson Dragons. I mean, I know that you lose Samuel Brown. That's a big loss, but man, that one really took me aback. And I think North Dakota is a team to watch for. All right, Cedarian Williams, by the way, giving his 1-6A prediction. Valdosta, Camden, Colquitt, Lowndes, Richmond Hill, and Tift. So he's got Richmond Hill and Tift on the outside looking in. I don't know. We'll see.
Obadiah says, he said, that's interesting.
That is interesting for sure.
But I'm not mad at Valdosta being number 1. I got to agree with that one.
All right, so Sly, tell us a little bit about you guys up there. You got Roswell, and this is 7-5A. Roswell, Gainesville, are they both in y'all's region?
Yes, they are.
All right. Run down your region for us and kind of give us some insight.
Yeah, no problem. Region we have, it's us, Roswell, Gainesville, Chattahoochee, Johns Creek, Lanier, and Seconder. So obviously, us, Gainesville, Roswell, and Seconder are probably the top 4 battling out of there. Lanier's probably right behind that. But Chattahoochee is 4-0, and I'm not taking them lightly, but we'll see when it comes to the battle this week. Just how good they really are, 4-0. But yeah, it's not an easy region, and I can tell you what, Gainesville's playing good ball. I watched that, that Carrollton game. We just started watching a little bit of film on those guys as well. That was a very chippy game, very, very physical game, and Carrollton took that game over. But Gainesville's no slouch at all, and we know he does a great job. But we're going to play out at their place, another road game, right? A little further distance than usual for us. I think we're opening that place up with them for the first time this year. They're playing there, so it's going to be interesting.
So, and that's Chattahoochee you're talking about?
I skipped ahead of Gainesville a little bit. I was kind of all over the board on you there.
Okay.
We play Chattahoochee at home this week. They're 4-0.
Gotcha.
Then we play in a few weeks down the road a very big region game with Gainesville at their place, and then we have Roswell at the end of the year to finish it off. So it doesn't get any easier. And then throw Seconder in there, by the way, in the middle.
Hey, listen, I like Seconder a lot. I mentioned to you earlier. Yeah, I've got them ranked in Class 5A.
They're playing good ball for sure.
Yeah, that they are. So, okay. Well, what other games have we not talked about? I'll mention this one. Of course, again, talking about some of these blue bloods that have kind of fallen by the wayside. Talk about, what's happened with Brookwood. We mentioned Brookwood, Parkview, a couple of teams that have traditionally always been around in the state, but they're starting to falter a little bit. Kind of give us some insight into what's going on there. So is that just a temporary thing? Are we going to see, is this going to, kind of foreshadow a pattern for where these programs are headed? Kind of give us some insight there.
Well, we have a small snapshot right now, but to your point, I think Parkview was a pretty quick change. Look at Westlake. Westlake's 2-3 now. Brookwood, the last couple of years have trying to fight back there. For some reason, they're having a hard time. But then look at Archer, who really hasn't gotten back there, right? So to your point, I think once you start that slippery slope, it's hard to recover. So you got to recover quickly. If not, it just keeps on going downhill.
Yeah, and Evan Reese says that Westlake is another blue blood. They still have talent, but they are struggling against tough competition.
It's a great point, too. What a great example that is of what we're talking about. I can't put my finger on Westlake and what's going on there. Any insight into that, Sly?
I don't know. I know the principal real well down there. I know their AD. I know they have a talented squad. I know that I think they played Roswell last week, and Roswell took it to them. Roswell rebounded back, I believe, from that Buford loss. So I think to Evan Reese's point, he's a Roswell guy. I think that, they're talented, but they don't have the culture yet. Even though they've been a talented and a well-versed team pushing in the playoffs, I don't think that culture's been established with this group of kids. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, I apologize. But that's how I see it as.
Listen, we've talked about Mazzani. We've talked about this a lot. I want to get y'all's opinion, and y'all being Mazzani, Sly, and our viewers. I've always said, and you can look at a couple of examples, Valdosta, Todd Robinson, for one. We talked about Marvis Parish, with Lounge. Just a couple of examples there. I know Sly mentioned the young man at Chattahoochee, the quarterback there. Where am I going with that? Well, here's what I'm trying to say. You can go as far as your quarterback will take you. He is that much of a difference maker on any football team, and that can work both ways, okay? Look at the young man with Walton. Heglinski, I believe was his name. Jeremy Heglinski. Wake Forest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, boom. Jeremy Heglinski goes to Wake Forest. Suddenly you've lost, your 3-4 year starter, and Walton is they're scratching and clawing, trying to stay alive. Just a couple of examples there, again, with that team. And I'm just trying to think of, a couple of the others. Parkview. Well, who would ever think that Parkview would not be in the mix?
Yeah, we were just talking about this earlier, how, their decline was just so quickly within a season, right?
It really had. Well,
or a year.
They were 9-4 last year. So, but again, when you start talking about teams like Parkview, you've always in the past at least talked about them in state championship contender form, and I just don't think they're there right now. But I guess my bigger point is, are these programs, or is this a 1 year, 2 year wonder? Or are we going to see teams like River Ridge? Remember, River Ridge had a couple of great years and haven't heard much from them anymore. And that's just, Whitewater comes to mind. Remember when Whitewater came out big about, 7-8 years ago, and they've fallen off?
Yep.
You just wonder which programs are going to fall off and never come back or have a hard time bouncing back. Sly, what do you think about that? Take that, since we're talking about a lot of these North Georgia teams.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with your saying. I think that you got to give credit to the teams that are consistently winning, right? and it's not by getting players. It's by having a culture set, a great feeder program, and adapting and adjusting to your personnel we talked about earlier. Those are the teams that are doing it. The ones that aren't doing it, you hope they can get back. The Brookwoods of the world, because Parkviews of the world, because those guys are great programs that have been around for decades, and and their fan base goes deep. You think of teams like, I don't know, back in the day, Flyer Branch was rocking and rolling, right?
Yes.
And that's another one as well. You're just trying to go across the board, different teams and programs around the area that have done that. But then you look at teams that bounce back, right? And I think you look at that down there in the South Georgia area, right? Because Lowndes had a couple of down years. All of a sudden, they're bouncing back. So it can happen. The thing is, you can't let it get to the point where, as an AD and a head coach, kids don't want to be there. Kids want out, right? And then kids start bailing, like Cedar Grove. They may never recover right now. Because I told you, I made a joke about it a few months ago. The bus opened up those doors, and it didn't stop. And it's sad, but that can decimate programs.
Absolutely. Again, you're watching Extra Point with Phil Jones and Mazzani Matthews. We do it every Monday at 5 o'clock. And, of course, we welcome in our buddy Coach Sly, who joined us about midway through the show. And, again, we want to thank our friends at Pepsi-Cola and our buddy Dr. Kevin Collins, MD, with the Houston Clinic. Big thanks to those folks that make it possible to do what we do every Monday. Speaking of Sean Calhoun, going to be talking to him and Coach Josh Niblett tomorrow, as I host their two coaches shows every week, and you guys can hear the playback, the recording of those two coaches shows. It's going to be interesting to see what Coach Calhoun has to say about his Colquitt County football team, and Coach Niblett has to say about Gainesville. I can tell you this. Those are going to be two tough conversations because those are two teams, two coaches who aren't used to talking about coming off of big losses, and both of them are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was just thinking about that when you said with Coach Niblett.
Absolutely.
Yeah, some coaches, it's so funny. Some coaches like winning. Some coaches just hate losing, right?
Yeah.
And those are the ones that like winning, when you lose, eat you up. But the ones that hate losing, those are the ones that really get eaten up by it. And both those guys will bounce back. Both those guys will have really good positive information for you and give you a great conversation, because you do grow through adversity, and both those teams will grow through that for sure. They're great coaches and great programs.
Talk about a couple of programs, Sly, and I know this is not necessarily in your neck of the woods, but I do want to satisfy some of our guys in South Georgia. How about Appling County, the Pirates? Now, I've got in my upcoming pick six. By the way, I was 4-2 last week in my pick six. So I'm going this week with three of the games will be Georgia, Florida. So we've got a few of those this week. But this past week we had Appling County losing to DeLand, Florida. I was a little shocked at this one. 38-7, Appling County loses this one. This week we've got Richmond Hill taking on Buchholz from Gainesville. We've got Colquitt County, the aforementioned Packers, going to be taking on Rickards from Tallahassee, I believe it is. And then we've got Swanee, the Bulldogs from Live Oak, going to be taking on Appling County again. So Appling County got back-to-back teams from Florida. So there you go. Time for Georgia teams to kind of put their money where their mouth is. We've been talking about these Georgia teams losing to out-of-state games.
Yeah.
Or out-of-state teams, right?
I see Mike Raquel. I want to say that's how you say his last name.
Is it Raquel or Rachel?
He said stay away from Appling due to their QB1 not playing. So I didn't know that the QB was not playing.
Is that for Appling?
I think so. That's a huge factor.
Well, just what I said. You go as far as your quarterback goes.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
All right. Well, Sly, Mazzani, I've talked a lot. I've talked most of the show. What do you guys want to chat about? I don't want to steal any of y'all's thunder here.
One interesting comment that I saw was from, let me go back up here, Roster Sutherland. He says, when we were talking about, programs being up 1 year or up for a few years and their program kind of going down, he says, Lassiter in my area is a good example. They were number 1 in the state going into the 2012 playoffs after a semifinal run in 2011. But he says, I believe they haven't made the playoffs since, So, okay. So what kind of factors play into, I know some people were talking about recruiting and everything like that, but what kind of factors play into that, Coach Sly?
Well, I can tell you this. That was the last time they had a real good quarterback, I believe, to Phil's point. And I think that definitely hurts them. And then once a kid or two leaves, they all leave and go someplace else. They have never recovered there, unfortunately. And that's a really good point. Lassiter was a perennial powerhouse, and they have been down, and that's not a fun place to be, unfortunately. And hope they can get back and get rolling. I know they're working hard over there. But that's a great point by that listener, for sure.
And that is a great point by that listener. And when a program is down. And we were talking about, programs brand for I think a week or two ago, we were talking about that and how basically to market themselves to get, for recruiting purposes for players to come play for them. But when a program is down, what do you think a program can do to bring it back up? Or do you think it's like a natural ebb and flow of a program to be down for a few years until more talent comes? And then, that perfect matchup between talent and coaching. What do you think it is?
So there's an ebb and flow where you're going to possibly be down. You have to be, unless you're recruiting players, you're going to be down a little bit. It happens. Whether it be a down, just maybe a playoff game or two, or maybe down more than that, depends where you're at. But if you know what you have coming through the pike, right, through your feeder program and through your sub-varsity teams, you can also know how you're going to schedule a little bit, right? And you have to schedule teams that are going to just beat the crap out of you, non-region, and lose your players' hearts and mentality and drive before the region starts, right? You're going to try to get a few teams in there where you compete with, get better, obviously, and then work your schedule. Because I always say this all the time. The difference between 4-0 and 0-4, 90% of the time is scheduling, right?
Yeah.
Now, you may have a team that's really talented, and that's fine. But sometimes there's teams that just schedule teams knowing they're going to have a rough region, but they're going to try to stick a game or two out to get to the playoffs and do good on a non-region schedule they put together.
I lost you a little bit in the last. Oh.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where you finish maybe 6-4 in a weaker year, but you made a first round playoff run, and now you build it from there, right? Because you rather than scheduling a tough non-region, beat your team up before you get to the region. Now you can't even win. You can't even play, win a couple of region games to go to playoffs. So you have to really understand where you're at with your roster, with your quarterback position, and all the way through the levels from feeder up to your sub-varsity.
And I don't know if you've heard about Wayne County or know about their program that much, but I was looking at their record for this season, and they have not won a game this year.
No, and Wayne County was one of those teams, and we'll have to revisit this probably in the next couple of weeks or so. But so before the season, I had ranked the toughest schedules in the state. And I talked about veterans earlier. I think veterans had my number one toughest schedule. Benedictine was right up there. Appling. And, those are teams that we've talked about that are kind of struggling.
Yeah.
But Wayne County was one of those. Now, Wayne County had a coaching change. You guys remember that's where Jabo Shaw was. Okay.
Yes, and Jeremy Williams just said that. He said they had a good coach, but he left after 2 seasons.
Yep. I think, and listen, he's a good man. He's a great coach. I think Jabo Shaw, though, saw the writing on the wall. Okay. And I'll say this, Jabo Shaw left Rabun County before he went to Wayne. And Rabun County is down a little bit. Now, listen, look, coaches got to go and do what's best for them.
Well, okay. I don't know how it is in the coaching world, but okay, this kind of correlates to another question that I have. Okay, so
Okay.
sorry, you guys, but do you think it's a part of a coach's reputation? I know that everybody wants to improve their career and everything like that, but do people start to look at coaches when, like, okay, you've been to this team, you don't stay very long there, you're coming to this program now, how long are you going to stay? So does it really matter about longevity, how long a coach is there? And same thing with players, but more so in the college realm. When a player is in the portal and he's been from, because I mean, FSU's quarterback, he's been, with this team, he's at FSU now, but before he was like at 2 or 3 different colleges before.
Right.
So I'm like, does that have any effect on how coaches view you? Or even for, like I said about coaches, does being in a certain program is it like, do you have to be there long enough, or does that affect your reputation as a coach?
No, so you're talking about players or coaches?
Both, but let's start with coaches.
Okay. So, and I'll, of course, let Sly chime in, and we'll close with this. So I think it very much makes a difference. I think that coaches that tend to jump around, I think schools will look at that. Because let's face it, do I want to hire a guy who's got a track record of staying at a school 2 or 3 years and then changing? I don't want that guy.
Yeah.
Look, and let me back up. I may want that guy, but we're going to have a serious talk.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things, and again, this is, kind of one of these things where a coach has got to do what's best for him and his family. And Sly can correct me on this if I'm wrong. Those contracts are basically 1 year at a time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, it ain't like you can sign like a 4-year deal necessarily. And so I'll talk about the coaches, and I would say, yeah, I think that does, Mazzani, make a huge difference, in my opinion. Let's let Sly answer. I'm eager to see what Sly has to say.
100% agree with you. The contracts are end dated. They're 1-year contracts. So every year a coach can leave or a coach can stay. Now here's the thing: if you want culture, continuity in a program, you want a coach that's going to stay. So if you want to build that, then you want to pick a coach that's to stick around. If you want to build just a team for a year or two, find a coach that's hot, bring him in, and live and die by the sword from there. I wouldn't do that. I mean, I think we did a good job, in our selection process and with our coaches, and I think continuity and culture is everything. Not to say Jay Boshaw did anything wrong, because I think he did a great job at both the schools he was at. But coaches see the cupboards are bare and they leave.
Yeah, and I'm just using him as an example.
Yeah.
He was the first one that came to mind. He's certainly not by himself in that
Right.
regard.
No.
Yeah.
And I also think that players see that. And when the coach leaves or when the players see the coach there, they leave and they bounce around. And, you look at the quarterback, I think that's at Langston right now. Not mistaken, was at Collins Hill, and prior to that was at Buford.
Christian C5 Langford.
Yeah. So, not that anything wrong, but that's what happens when coaches are moving and kids are moving, right? I mean, so unfortunately, I think it's the way the football world is today. People can say they like it, dislike it. At the end of the day, it's a great question you proposed, and I think it's a great point you make. It goes hand in hand.
I feel like it's rare nowadays for, kids to grow up in a program. Like, I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with feeder programs. I know we talk about this a lot. But how kids from a young age are like, oh, wow, I want to be a Wildcat, or, oh, wow, I want to be a Trojan when I grow up. But now, since transferring is becoming so, part of the norm now, I don't think maybe these kids don't have aspirations of just being with one team, whether it is in high school or college level.
Yeah. So, again, guys, we'll close with it, and I'll say this. Georgia high school coaching positions, football coaching positions, are some of the more attractive and sought-out positions, I think, pretty much in the country. And one of the reasons I say that is because I get a ton of calls from coaches from out of state, okay, who are always asking me about, hey, do you know? And, again, that's just come from the years of making relationships.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, and Sly, you probably have you probably have access to these stats. I know that the last at least 5 years, there have been 100 or more coaching changes in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
Now, that can be coaches leaving to go from one school to another, or being let go, or resigning, but there's a lot of turnover amongst Georgia's high school football coaching head coaching positions. And that's a little surprising to me, and I think a lot of people may find that surprising, but I'll give you guys the last word and let y'all talk about this as we exit.
I'll start really quick, but I think Mike made a great comment. He says players are playing for coaches, not the program these days. And I think that's a great comment to kind of talk about, or to kind of summarize what we were talking about.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, Coach Sly?
I think that the coaches that are changing and things that are happening goes back to administration. It goes back to vertical alignment. If you have a coach that has a AD and a principal with the same vision, the same vertical alignment together, and nothing's out of line, they'll be fine. They'll be staying. If you have anything out of line there or somebody's not on the same page, you're going to lose coaches eventually, and it's going to happen because you know what? They'll go someplace else and do just fine. So I think every AD out there, principal out there listening, get aligned with your coaches and support them and support their vision and your student athletes, because at the end of the day, the athletic world that we saw with all the tragedy going on in this day and age, athletics is what keeps this place together, the high schools and this world. And we need more coaches that are staying and really, to your point, Mazzani, working for their program and community.
Yes, I agree.
All right, guys, I want to thank Coach Sly for checking in with us as he does. I want to thank all of y'all for your great input as always. Hey, the show is as much about you guys and your ideas, your comments, your suggestions, your questions, as much as anything. That's what this show has been built on, and we cannot do it without y'all. And Mazzani, I think you feel the same way I do you not?
I do. I love reading all the comments, and I learn just as much as from you guys as you guys enjoy and probably learn from this show as well. So it's about building a community, and I love meeting you guys at the games. I met Obadiah,
Yes.
we met Jose,
Yes.
so it's really great connecting with you guys at different levels. So I'm excited about this whole season. We're finally in regions. I'm excited to see. We may see some people at this Friday's game. So
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Parkview at North Gwinnett. It's the Eric Godfrey Bowl, I call it. Eric Godfrey taking on his old team. Eric Godfrey with his new team there at North Gwinnett. And, boy, the Bulldogs are really playing well. This should be a great game, and we cannot wait to be there at the ITG Next Game of the Week. So certainly looking forward to bringing you guys that. And this is going to kick off really a slate of great games in the second half of the season, Mazzani.
Yes.
That's going to include taking on our games including Milton and Gainesville. Milton taking on the Red Elephants. We've got, I mentioned Richmond Hill, Tift County. We've got Perry, Benedictine. And we've just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
So some great games coming up. All right, guys, thank you all so much. Sly, thanks so much for joining us, brother. As always, we appreciate your insight.
Appreciate you both. Appreciate you having me.
Mazzani, thank you so much, a.k.a. Miss Producer.
Thank you, Phil.
And, guys, thank you all so much for checking out the show. You've been watching Extra Point with Phil Jones, with Coach Sly, and Mazzani Matthews, a.k.a. Miss Producer, right here at ITG Next Georgia. Thanks so much to Dr. Kevin Collins and the Houston Clinic, and, of course, our friends at Pepsi Cola of Valdosta for their sponsorship of the show. Be sure to check us out on social media, Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're all over the place. ITG Next Georgia. Until next Monday or Friday, if you watch us then, don't forget to tune in for the game of